My name is Christy Busby, and you are about to listen to the next episode of my podcast called F.A.T.E, From Atheism to Enlightenment. So come on in, join me. We're going to talk about it all, from atheism to enlightenment. Alrighty, guys, here we go. Get ready, and welcome to your F.A.T.E. Welcome, everyone, to the next episode of F.A.T.E. How's everybody doing today? On today's show, I have award-winning writer and journalist David Edwards. He has a new book out called A Short Book About Ego and the Remedy of Meditation. David Edwards, welcome to your F.A.T.E, my friend. How you doing today?
Very well, thanks. Thanks very much for having me on.
Thank you for joining the show. I'm always talking about how people are kind of walking around, not fully awake, not fully conscious, not paying attention to their emotions, not paying attention to how they're feeling, not paying attention to why they're having the feelings that they're having. So I'm very excited to talk about the concept of the ego because most people don't even aren't even aware how badly they are triggered by this thing that we call the ego. But first, I always like to hear everyone's personal journey, and I'd love to hear yours. How did you come to write this book? Have you had any kind of spiritual awakening? Where do you tap in the waters in that pool? So tell me a little bit about how we got right here.
Well, if I go back to the early days, I grew up in quite a privileged family in a way. I mean, my parents came from quite a humble background, kind of working class, but my dad was the first guy in the family who went to university, and he was very sort of gifted at maths, and it ended up running a paper mill. He was managing director of a paper mill, and he had the Jaguar, he had the swimming pool and tennis court. We weren't mega rich by any standards, but we were comfortably off. And I noticed that my family and his friends were all sort of doing quite well. We lived in a nice part of the southeast of England, and they had this conventional success, but they also had a lot of divorce, a lot of alcoholism, a lot of Valium. And I thought, wait a minute, if this is success, what does failure look like? So sort of from an early age, I started wondering, is this success really? And if it isn't, what is there such a thing as happiness and success? And I wasn't somebody who ever really just accepted the version of happiness that was promoted by the culture, by the media, and so on. I asked myself, what is happiness? And so that really got me started. And then sort of all the way through university, I started reading political philosophy, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and he was talking about the wonder of nature. And if we live in accord with nature, we're much happier than when we live in big cities and so on. So that was quite a sort of romantic ideal. And so I was a bit of sort of romantic about the idea that if we just returned to a more natural way of life, we'd be happy. But that didn't seem particularly convincing either. But then I worked for corporations for 5 years in London, and I found that incredibly boring. And my sort of questioning about whether that was real success continued. And I came across Joseph Campbell's book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. And he said, if you put something dead at the heart of your life, for example, money, which is what I was doing. I was just doing my jobs, working for British Telecom, for example, for money. He said that if you put something dead at the heart of your life, you will experience life as a deadness. And he said that what we're looking for isn't really a meaning to life. It's an experience of being alive. And so his solution was follow your bliss. Now, what does that mean? It means find something that doesn't just give you pleasure, but gives you a deep fulfillment, a real satisfaction, a sense of being alive. And so I felt I was in this wasteland of money-oriented work. Um, and one day in July 1991, I followed his advice and I decided I was going to be a writer. And because what I loved doing was writing stories and writing philosophical essays and reading about all these issues. And I just gave up my corporate work at 29. And that's how my journey began, really, into spirituality.
How far are you along in your spirituality? What is your current philosophy right now as far as the nature of reality? Where do you tap in when it comes to organized religion? Are you into that world at all, or would you consider yourself a Buddhist, or do you categorize yourself, or where exactly are you at in the world?
It's a good question. I mean, I was really interested in Buddhism for a long time, in Tibetan Buddhism particularly. Uh, I'm not very comfortable with organized religion. There's always a lot of politics and a lot of uh, uh, conformity. And what I found on the spiritual search is really it's about tapping into your own feelings about what makes you happy and what makes you feel dead inside. And only you can do that for yourself. You can't follow other people. If you're following, you're not sensitive to your own reality. And so I've just stubbornly just gone my own way, really. And I've I've sort of read an awful lot of Osho, Eckhart Tolle, these kind of enlightened sort of mystics. And my experience is that in meditation, and it's taken me a long time. I've been meditating for 30 years. My experience is that um, the happiness that we seek outside us will always disappoint us because the real happiness is inside. And that sounds really implausible, but actually, there is a source of bliss and love, which is always there, but it's always drowned out by this incredibly noisy, painful mind. And Kabir, the mystic Kabir, called it the divine melody inside. And the mind is like a roaring jet engine. And as long as your jet engine's roaring away, if you're very ambitious and you've got all your plans, you just can't hear this very subtle but incredibly powerful divine melody inside. So that's where meditation is really the only answer, because when you meditate, you you move your attention away from your thoughts into your feelings or into your breathing or whatever it is, and then your mind calms down, and then you can experience gaps in thought, and through the gaps in thought, you can experience this love and bliss. So my philosophy or religion, if you like, is very simple. We're all looking outside for happiness, and we always fail. And it's only when we look within, and in our culture, there isn't a strong tradition of looking within because the whole culture is about selling us products and making money out of selling us external solutions. So it's quite a challenge to overcome that propaganda and say, I'm actually going to experiment with looking inside.
You and I are like-minded friends. I haven't been on my spiritual journey, for as long, maybe 5 years, maybe, but I am finding, I am also not an organized religious person. I was an atheist most of my life, then I had a health crisis, and then I had this incredible transformation within, and I had my own journey, and I'm still on it, and I'm still figuring out exactly what my belief system is,
Yeah.
but I will say that I am not somebody that is going to align with just one way of thinking or being, or an overall religion. I think I am finding that for myself, true happiness is absolutely something that lies within, and that being my most authentic, truest version of who I am is what I believe we're all here to do. And that is what I am trying to do now with everything in my life, with who I am, with interacting with other people. My own personal spiritual beliefs, practices may not align with everybody, but I certainly don't think that there's one line of thought or one way of being. I think it all depends on your own perspective and where you are, and what Joseph Campbell says, what gives you your own personal bliss.
Yeah.
And it's it's hard to get to that place. I got to this place through an awful lot of trauma, through an awful lot of, like, shadow work, doing a lot of work, and most people are so distracted. We're on our phones, we have 3 jobs, we are
Yeah.
unable to even take a breath to evaluate, um, where w taking the temperature. We're just kind of programmed to not tap into ourselves, to look for all exterior problems, happiness, everything exterior-wise.
Yeah.
But, before we continue to dance in that direction, I wanna really start asking about the ego and what that is and how it affects us. What is the ego? What is its purpose? What is it supposed to do within our experience here on this plane? And how is it constantly kind of um, I would say working against us in a lot of ways. The ego mind is something that is like an untamed tiger that we don't even know is controlling us until we really are able to think outside of this 3D matrix we're all living in.
Yeah.
So, why don't we talk a little bit about what that is and how it really does prevent us from being our happiest selves?
There are lots of different definitions of the ego. There's a Sufi story I like, which says that God played a little joke on us when we're born. He whispered in our ear, "You're the special one." And the joke is that he says that to everybody. So the aspect of the ego that I focus on in this book is this urge to be special, to be extraordinary, to be above other people. Um, and the classic example is the successful ego, um, sitting in a Rolls Royce, smoking a cigar, the Donald Trump ego, if you like. There's a football manager in Europe called Jose Mourinho, who won the Champions League, a big tournament in football. And when after he'd won, he said to journalists, "Please don't call me arrogant, but I'm the European champion, and I think that makes me a special one." So that's the successful ego. And I've had that in my life. And when I write about these things in the book, I'm not sort of pointing the finger at other people. The book's virtually an autobiography. So all of the problematic egos I discuss are me as well. And when I published my first book in 1995, you know, even though I might not have wanted to, I felt a little bit special. Yeah, even if I hadn't wanted to feel special, I felt special because I'm a published author. I've written a book. People asked me about my book. They wrote things about the book and said, "Well done." And so that's we're born peeping out of our eyes and we're the center of the universe and we want it to stay that way. And we run into other people and they also think they're the center of the universe. So there's a problem. So the first ego I talk about is the successful ego, which dominates through positive achievement in life. But a less obvious form of ego I talk about is the suffering ego. So we can feel special because we've got more positive things than other people. But we can also feel special because we've got worse problems than other people. And just as the successful ego can dominate through power and wealth, commanding everybody's attention, a suffering ego can use their problems and suffering and the claim that their suffering is much worse than anybody else's to command the attention. Every conversation ends up being about their problems, their difficulties, their status as a victim.
Yes.
So that can also be a tyrannical ego in a different form. And so you can feel special because of positives in your life, negatives. And then there's the third issue, the third strategy that I talk about is the righteous ego, where you're more concerned about the positives and negatives in other people's lives than in your own. So you care more than other people. You're a vegetarian, or you don't fly because of climate change, or you're a patriot, as you would say. We would say a patriot.
Yeah.
You're a patriot. You've got to keep those commies away. I care more about my country than you. You've got to listen to me because I'm here to save you. So that's, if you care more, you can be as dominant as a successful ego and as a suffering ego, and you can demand
Yeah.
attention because you care more.
That's right. It's almost like it's this sense of superiority, or the moral superiority over someone else because you feel like you are justified. You're the holier than thou individual.
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
have you're on the right side. They're wrong. I mean, you see that so much in our culture now that people, whether it be the successful ego or the righteous ego or even the suffering ego, because attention is attention is attention, whether it's attention for suffering or attention because you're successful and people are looking at you driving around the street in your Jag. It's attention,
Yeah.
makes you feel good. I think a lot of people have these tendencies, and number 1, they're not conscious of it. They just know that it feels good in the moment. They don't know why. They don't know exactly what it feeds. They're not thinking about their emotions. But also, um, the other side of the ego that you were speaking of in your book was, for example, when somebody else is winning, when somebody else is successful, when somebody else is getting the attention, we automatically think of ourselves and think, "Well, what about me? Why am I not getting the attention? Why am I not winning the award? Why am I not getting on that platform or that stage or that whatever?" And I think that ends up making us feel bad about ourselves, that we somehow can't feel happy for other people because we have this interior sense of jealousy, envy, and it doesn't make us feel good. But one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this is because y- sometimes you have to uncover these emotions and talk about them, and let it be known that everyone goes through this. This is not this is not unique concept or feeling to anyone, that we all have a little bit of jealousy towards other people. We all want what other people when other people are happy, we want that happiness. When other people have something we don't have, we want that feeling. We're always seem to be searching for that feeling of happiness, contentment outside of ourselves. And when we see somebody else having that or experience that, we just can't seem to be happy for each other. There is no we just can't. And I don't think people understand that that is our egoic mind, not playing tricks on us, but really controlling the narrative of our emotions and how we feel about ourselves. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, the novelist Gore Vidal said that when a friend succeeds, a part of me dies.
Yes,
I love that quote.
exactly.
But it doesn't mean that we're bad people. And I think it's really my excuse with writing all of these things, and really I'm writing about me with these awful issues with ego. I'm not particularly drawing attention to the examples from myself, but it's definitely me as well in all these three forms of ego. Um, is that it isn't that you shouldn't have these things because it's part of the mind which hasn't been observed properly in meditation. The thing is to be aware of it. If you can be
Yes.
aware of it, it's like Eckhart Tolle says, to be aware of ego means it's not really ego. The real problem with ego is when somebody's sitting there, no, I'm not a righteous ego. I'm just right. you know.
Yep. Yep.
So, but there's a lovely quote from Osho. He said, your pleasures are written in water. Your suffering is written in stone.
Mm.
And there was a wonderful example last week of Scotty Scheffler, who's the world number one golf player, American, I believe. And he was saying, it was only a few days ago, he's like the number one golf player. He's earned $65 million. He's the best, most famous. He said, this life isn't fulfilling. He said, I devote my whole life to winning the tournament, and I feel euphoria for maybe 2 minutes. And that's it. And then it's back to the next, and then it's on to the next tournament. He said, what's the point? He says, I'm not encouraging people to be golf players because what's the point? It doesn't give you happiness. It doesn't fulfill your deepest needs. But the real interesting thing, which goes back to that quote about your suffering is written in stone, Scotty Scheffler feels euphoria for 2 minutes. But somebody who fails and fails and fails to win a golf tournament all their lives will suffer and suffer and suffer for decades If they get close to winning and didn't quite win, they're tortured. We all know there are
Yep.
people like that. Rory McIlroy, another golfer, was tortured. I'm not a big golf fan, but these guys are quite interesting. They're tortured. So
Yeah.
the irony of seeking external success is when you get it, it doesn't satisfy you. And when you don't get it, you're tortured. So it's a lose-lose situation.
100%. And I hope as many people as possible read this book and start to understand that happiness truly does start within. I'm working on it myself. It is a practice. I do meditate. I do work on um understanding when I'm starting to have feelings like this, that my personal mantra is I don't compete anymore. I attract. I attract what I want. I try to fill myself and be as loving and creative and joyful and happy as I possibly can, because I truly believe that what you think, feel, and say, you will attract in your own reality
Yeah.
every day. So rather than focus on somebody else having more, um, being more, whatever the more is that you feel like you're lacking in your own life, I feel like the only antidote to that is to, number 1, never compare yourself to somebody else's journey. That is their journey. That's not your journey.
The
Everybody has to be able to understand that they are capable of creating their own journey path here in life. And if they are seeking that happiness, whether, and hopefully it's not financial happiness. We have been tricked to consume. We have been tricked to feel like the latest gadgets out there are going to fulfill us. We have been tricked to feel like um, the next bright, shiny thing is going to be the next thing that really gives us that contentment. And that is a dead end. And I am very hopeful that humans as a whole will start waking up to this idea that this obsession with materialism that we are in this culture is a dead end journey, not only for us as individuals, but for the planet, for the other species, for the environment. It is a dead end,
Yeah,
lose lose game,
absolutely.
cycle of unhappiness that is never going to fulfill your, not only your purpose here, but your the giant hole you have in your
Yeah.
heart right now.
The mind isn't interested in what it's got. It's only interested in what it wants next.
Yes.
It wants the new thing, but the new thing always becomes the old thing, and then you want the new thing. That's what they talk about samsara, the wheel of becoming. That this process can't end. You can never have enough, and so obviously that kind of system on a finite planet is going to lead to the disaster that we're seeing now with climate change.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah.
the only place I would disagree with you slightly there is if I say to myself, you shouldn't compare with other people. You should do this. I should be that. We've got this nuclear reactor of an ego blazing away in the center of our being. And our mind says, I shouldn't compare or I shouldn't want shiny objects. But the ego, the nuclear reactor generating this incredible ball of energy, is constantly pushing us in that direction. So whatever good intentions my mind has, the ego tends to win over in the end. Now, the great thing about the ego, I say great, it causes a huge amount of pain because the strategies it employs for succeeding don't work, as you've said. So it causes pain. Now, you can use that pain as a portal for meditation. So just to give an extreme example, which I talk about in the book, that my dad died 5 years ago at the height of the COVID epidemic. He didn't die of COVID, but he was stuck in hospital for the last month of his life, couldn't see me or the rest of the family. And he was let out at the end with failing kidneys and a heart and died within 24 hours of coming home. And I was sort of, overwhelmed with sadness and anxiety and anguish. And it was almost a feeling of claustrophobia because you can't escape. How are you going to escape your own feelings? So I was just really suffering a lot, obviously, because my dad had died and I hadn't managed to see him before he died. And so I sat down in meditation, as I always do, and I just watched this pain in my chest. It was like a ball of fiery anguish and pain. And I watched it and watched it. It became more intense as I watched it. But what I'm doing when I'm watching it is I'm not thinking. So the thinking mind, which is spinning around, generating these painful thoughts and painful emotions, starts to slow down because my attention's elsewhere. I'm not watching the thoughts and continuing the thoughts. I'm watching the pain. And as the thoughts slow down, the pain changes because it's not being fed by thoughts anymore. So it started to calm down. And it actually, after about the half an hour, 40 minutes, started to be pleasurable, which seemed a bit indecent almost when my dad's just died. And I continued watching my pain. And eventually a gap appeared in the thoughts. And this is the really remarkable phenomenon, which mystics have talked about for tens of thousands of years. And it's the reason I wrote the book, is that when there's a gap in thought, you can experience awareness unobstructed. And it is an experience sitting on a chair, doing nothing. Your dad's just died. An hour ago, you were in total hell. Suddenly you're full of love and euphoria and ecstasy. And so I actually wrote in my meditation journal, bliss in the afternoon meditation. I was, and so the pain of the ego generates all of these painful emotions. That's a more extreme example of how we can suffer. But the ego, jealousy, anxiety, anger, resentment, you can sit and watch that pain. And as you watch it, your thoughts slow down, the pain dissipates, and you can experience a gap in thought. You can experience love and bliss. And to me, when you've experienced that even once, even just a glimpse, you know that that's where the answer lies. You know that all of these frustrating searches, like Scotty Scheffler, the golf players, he's working himself to death to achieve these tournament wins. It's not helping. But you can just do this. You can watch the pain. And then you deactivate the ego so that you can start to make different choices. Then I don't need to compare with the other person because I've got what I need here. I don't need a shiny gadget because I know it's in here now. And then so it loses its magic.
Yes. It's definitely an ego trap. There's no doubt. And I don't think that I feel that our culture sets us up to do anything but pay attention to within, between our slave economy that we currently have, where people are so overworked. We're programmed to think if we work all the time and we get ahead and we have the big house and we have the cars, or we're working 3 jobs and we can barely keep a
Yeah.
roof over our head. We are on a rat wheel system right now where unless you're swimming in the top 1%, you are really consumed with thinking about money, with thinking about how you're gonna make your next big thing. There is no time, it feels, anymore for we don't even, encourage people to let me say this. This might be an American culture thing, because I know over in Europe it's a little bit different. You guys take the month of August off. You don't work like in America in particular, it is really drummed in us that if you don't work your tail end off every single day, you are not worthy you're not worthy.
Yeah.
You're unworthy. And it is such a trap, a mental trap, and it serves as such a disservice to figuring out what does make you happy, what and who we really are. What is your sole purpose here? And it becomes this rat race of just running on this treadmill 24 hours a day and working, 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 because that is what the level of expectation is. That is somehow makes you a respectable citizen in this country.
Yeah.
And if you're not working hard, you're not worthy of being a part of the I don't even know what you would call it, the mainstream culture here, I guess.
Respectability. Yeah.
The respected, culture. It's why you see outrageous amounts of people with mental unwellness everywhere, is because of the system that we are swimming in now, that does not we were never meant to live as human beings the way we live on this planet. It's not who we are. It's not who we are at our core. It is not how we are supposed to be experiencing this plane. And it I don't know what the answer is. How to I personally have completely and totally escaped the 3D matrix on many levels compared to what I used to be. Like, there is a ton of political unrest out there in the world now that I choose to be out of the loop in. I choose not to pay attention to that. I choose not to partake in the outrage because I do believe it is a distraction in a lot of ways, and it does keep you fearful, angry, outraged, insecure. And I don't want to live like that. I try to live my life every day knowing that right now, in this moment, I have everything that I need. I my belly is full, there's a roof over my head, and I am happy, and I don't live in next year, and I don't live in the rear view mirror anymore. I don't torture myself with prior mistakes, and I don't fear the future, and I live a pretty fearful life. Like, I work in the movie industry. My career is gone. Like, it moved overseas. I barely worked the last few years. Like, I'm struggling to make ends meet. I don't let that dim my light, bro. I'm like, right now, I'm good. And I focus on right now.
Yeah.
And it's a Jedi mind trick almost because we are inundated with reasons to be angry, reasons to be
Yeah.
scared, whether it be the environment, our political unrest, the wars, um, paying my bills, all of those things are things that could be weighing heavily and causing me stress and making me worry. And I choose not to live there anymore. I live in now. I want to discuss a few of the things that you talk about in your book when it comes to the celebrity ego, because I work in the film and TV industry. And when I read about it, I was like, spot on, David. So spot on.
Yeah.
You said, when you are around somebody or in the company of celebrities, it is very conditional on the acceptance, and that there is an unspoken inequality. And if you were to step out of line in any way, you will be sharply reminded or even replaced. And when I read that, I was like, he is so right. I have been working around celebrities for 20 years, people with power, people with a lot of money, and the um the power line is almost palpable on a set. And there is a reason why we have in our industry something that's called above the line and below the line. And it's very hierarchical. And if you
What
are
what
above the
what
line,
yeah, what does that mean above the line?
above the line are producers, actors, writers are above the line, and below the line are all the mainly the crew, the workers, the
Mm.
the DP, the I'm an assistant director, the production designer. All those people are what they call below the line workers. And when you get into big movie world, it is, filled with the level of ego that you're having to deal with every day, whether it be from an award-winning actor or actress or an Emmy award-winning costume designer or whatever. The amount of political dancing that you have to do around these people sometimes is, um it it's crazy, and it's one of the reasons why I don't follow any celebrities. I'm not fans. Like, I understand that they're just human beings out there, and yes, they get in front of the camera, and yes, some are really talented, and some aren't really talented, but they're really beautiful. But really, everybody around them has just made them feel so special, so powerful, that if you even attempt to penetrate that bubble and treat them like a normal human being, you will get caught up for it. And
Yeah.
it is it's really kind of sick and twisted. It's sometimes to a certain degree because nobody tells them no, nobody tells them they're wrong. It's probably like being around billionaires
Yeah.
where nobody tells them anything that their little ego minds don't wanna hear, nothing. So, it turns them in, and I'm not talking everybody, and I'm sure s hill, not gonna name names. I'm not here to call anybody out. I'm just saying that that system is in place. It is real. And I would love for our society in general to stop seeing people who are on TV or whatever, to put them on such a platform of being on a separate plane than the rest of the everyday people that live in this world. I felt has been a huge disservice to our culture in general, and as we've created, like, monsters in a little bit of a way, they're
Yes.
kind of. And again, I'll say it again, not every actor. There's some really huge actors out there that are full of grace and humility and kind, of course, but there's a fair bit that are just so powerful, so, um, fragile with their egos that if you were to treat them or ask them to do something that they feel is beneath them, you will probably get spoken to, lose your job, get replaced, especially when it comes to, like, the assistant world. I mean, it's kind of crazy what has happened in the celebrity of ego that we have in our culture in today's world.
There's an interesting aspect of that from my point of view as an Englishman. I've noticed that the English, when they go over to the States or the British, really defer to Americans. They kind of treat Americans as a higher species. Like when they go to Hollywood or
Mm.
um, and I was really surprised actually when Ricky Gervais, you know him,
Oh, I
he
love Ricky.
he did was it at the Golden Globes? I can't remember.
Mhm.
He did this speech making fun of all these celebrities who were in the audience, and it it seems trivial, but I almost couldn't remember a time when anybody had made them look human. And he was English, and he actually for the first time didn't defer to them, didn't treat them as superhuman, treated them as ordinary people that you can make fun of. And suddenly, from being this tall, they all seemed down here, sort of normal size. And I thought, wow, really unusual. And you sort of, yeah. So from my point of view, the Brits are terrible about deferring to the specialness of Hollywood. Mhm.
It's a really bizarre business to be in, and you get to be around people that you would never be around and see them from a perspective that no one else would be able to get to see, and you learn a lot about power, about money, about ego, and, you know, I I think it is changing a little bit. I think people are less inclined with the whole celebrity thing, but I really I would love to see a world where we see each other as more on an equal level
Yeah,
than this extreme level of looking, you say in your book, we do have an innate need to feel superior to other people. We want to feel like we're better. And even in the political discourse that we currently have, a lot of it is about the moral superiority, I think, that happens where depending on what your perspective is, you're looking at the other people that they're the enemy, you're on the right side, they're on the wrong side, you have the moral clarity on this, and it's just it's a it's a it's a trap, and it doesn't allow us to connect to each other on a different level other than whatever your talking point is
yeah,
you're
yeah.
trying to get across. It's
The,
just a
yeah,
trap.
the ego will use anything to feel
Yep.
superior. I mean, literally that something as superficial as the depth of your skin. If you're a
Yep.
different skin color, you're superior,
Yep.
or somebody's inferior. So if it can use something that trivial to create a sense of superiority, it can use anything, and it can be a political view, it can be your gender, it can be which newspaper you read, which car you drive. The ego can use anything. It identifies it. It becomes part of the self. Even
Yeah.
something, like the brand I use or the company I work for, which has prestige, or my car or my house or where I live, we absorb it into our sense of self. And then if you have a political belief which becomes part of yourself, when somebody attacks your political belief, it feels like they're attacking you. And so you will defend it as if you're defending for your life. So this is the real problem with the ego, is that it makes us completely intolerant because we feel, I mean, you've seen people on Twitter now called X, and you have Twitter spats where people argue and argue and argue and argue. And for everybody else on the outside, they look insane. Why? They're going on and on and on, abusing each other, fighting. What are they doing? Their ego is fighting for its life because they're holding on to, they've identified with a particular position, particular argument. And so it's become part of the self. So to be beaten in the argument is from their perspective, from the ego's perspective, to be killed. So
Yeah.
it creates this incredible fanaticism.
It has. There is a level of hate that is living out there today that I have never seen in our culture.
I
And
agree.
I think social media has destroyed our ability to connect with one another beyond this superficial, whatever team, red shirt, blue shirt game that we're playing with each other that is now escalating into a level of hatred that is only going to lead to bad outcomes.
Mhm.
And the level of pettiness in winning and not allowing somebody else to ever have a point or even consider that somebody else might have a point, because that means your ego would have to accept that it had an inferior point of view on this particular matter, and nobody could admit defeat or that they were wrong because it would hurt their ego. In a way, our egos, I feel, are ruining our society because we are not conscious of them. We don't talk about them. No one talks about their internal biases, whether it's, whatever. We all have them. We all have internal biases. We all have things that trigger us, whether you're super religious and people of, gay and or whatever people you're not comfortable with, and it makes you frightened. So you react in crazy ways. You're not able to even analyze why you feel the way you feel. Why, there is no thought of when you're having an emotion, a thought, an urge. Why am I having this thought? What is it trying to teach me? How am I supposed to be reacting to this? And getting outside of the egoic mind and being able to observe your own thoughts instead of being a participant, be an observer of what you're thinking, feeling, and saying. And I
Yeah.
feel like that is the greatest life hack anybody could get on
Yeah.
this show,
Yeah.
is to start understanding that your egoic mind is going to feed you thoughts, feelings, emotions. And we as a society have to start understanding that and analyzing, why am I feeling like this? What is going on within?
And it doesn't have to be a hugely complex task. You don't have to go and live in a temple and meditate 12 hours a day. I noticed that I've got an electronic toothbrush. Probably you got the same thing. It goes on. It goes on for 2 minutes, and every 30 seconds it makes a little noise. And so you're supposed to change to a different corner of your mouth. And I noticed that when I concentrated really hard on where I was brushing, what angle I was brushing, and this sounds ridiculous, I know, but I noticed that after 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, I felt better. I thought, this is strange. Why do I feel better than before I started brushing? If I'm thinking all the time I'm brushing my teeth, there's no difference. But if I'm really thinking quite diligently, trying to do a good job so my dentist will be happy with me, I feel better. And you can do it even now. If you close your eyes, how do you know you've got a pair of hands? If you have your eyes closed, how do you know? And you can feel. I can feel tingling in my fingers. I can feel pulsing I can feel energy in my hands, in my fingers. If you sit and watch that tingling for 5 minutes, it sounds completely absurd, but if you do that for 5 minutes and you get used to doing it, what happens is you take attention away from this insane spinning wheel that's constantly boosted by short reels and Instagram and TikTok, and you bring it into your sensations, which is real. It's not the hot air of the head. It's real. It's part of nature. It's the body. And you put your attention in the tingling, and after 5 minutes, your mood has changed. You'll feel better. And if you do that through 2 or 3 times a day, you change your life. So it's not a huge thing. But the problem now is we've got all of these devices, and who knows? I mean, God knows it's so addictive. iPad, the iPhone, short reels. Everybody's watching short reels. Even
Yeah.
teenage boys aren't doing video games anymore. They're watching short reels. But we can just do this thing of, right, 5 minutes. I'm just going to feel the sensations in my hands or my feet, or listen to the blackbird. You can do it. And as soon as you get a sense, actually, this is helping me, you start to build momentum, and you start to be able to resist this crap that just
Yeah.
like a tsunami of mental activity, which just makes you so anxious and miserable.
Yes. 100%. I couldn't agree with you more. It is incredibly important to um monitor your own thoughts, your own feelings, your own acts, and breathing is huge. If you're going to like get into your body, if you're going to start getting into your sensations in your body and start looking within, breathing, taking those deep breaths and letting that breath get into your body and energize. it's it's transformed my life. I am so much more calm. I don't react to nearly extreme as I used to react. I'm not easily triggered. I'm happier, more content. Um, but I've also never really been somebody who's been super materialistic. Like, I don't own a designer bag. I don't own a pair of designer shoes. I I I don't understand that. I
No.
think that is just something that I people come down here with inner knowings, with inner feelings, they're, whatever. I think I've always had an inner knowing that, that stuff wasn't gonna fill me up. I don't wear jewelry. I don't have any rings on my
Wow,
hands,
really?
like, I don't have any of that. Like, I am not that girl. I'm not. So I've never been one that has been overly materialistic. Not to say I don't like nice things. Everybody likes nice things, but it's not something that I need in order to make myself feel good about myself. I didn't understand designer stuff until I was with one of my friends who has a girlfriend. And they explained to me that when she had her designer bag or something, um, of that nature with her, it was almost like a shield,
Mhm.
and it gave her a sense of confidence and a sense of feeling good that she couldn't get within her own body. And that, for the first time, I started to understand maybe what the draw of having a designer bag is, because beyond that, I was like, "I don't get it. It's holding my purse and my wallet. What in the hell am I spending $2,500 on for a bag I could get for 50 bucks, and it's gonna do the same thing." Like, literally, no upgrade there. It's the same thing. But people are obsessed with this label. It gives them a sense of self-esteem, it gives them confidence, it makes them feel important, it feeds that egoic mind,
Exactly.
and that is, something we as a culture and as a species really, I feel, needs to snap out of it and understand that is not where you're going to get your happiness.
I think a great help with that is, uh, as you said, we're all overwhelmed, especially it sounds like the States where you have to work just your tail off,
Oh,
as you
like a
said.
dog.
Um, if you realize that, I mean, my solution to that, I was working in business for 5 years, as I said, is I left my corporate career. I thought, how am I going to feed myself? So thought, okay, I'm going to teach English as a foreign language, but I'm going to do it part time. And I did it for 3 hours a day, which was like a complete revolution from what I was doing before when I was managing a department of 12 people, and it was hugely stressful. And so I worked part time, earned virtually nothing, but I had so much freedom, and I could breathe. I could do all the writing I wanted, all the reading I wanted. And I value that freedom so much that any attraction I might have had towards the brand
Yeah.
vanished, because I thought, which do I want, the brand or freedom? I'm just so happy to be off the corporate hamster wheel
Yes.
and to have my freedom. So that, that, those two can go together. You can support that rejection of the stuff you don't need, by the fact
Yeah.
that not having it means you can be more free.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, I probably live one of the most liberated lives as an adult woman like, I live in 2 places. I'm not married, I can take care of myself. I don't have a corporate job. I'm not tied to a Monday through Friday gig. I work when I wanna work. I mean, well, let's just say now that the movie industry is, like, left town, I'm in a different situation, but for most of my life, I chose when I wanted to work. When I worked, I made a lot of money. I mean, I have lived and have been very extremely blessed to live a very liberated life, and there's no way at this point in my journey I could ever go and work for a corporation. I
No.
couldn't do it. No one has ever told me where to be. I mean, don't get me wrong, when I'm working on a show, it's from this date to this date, and it has an end, and I can choose to never work with those people again, or we were cool and I could go on to another show with them. You have autonomy about your life. Somebody doesn't own you. I don't have a manager saying, "You're gonna do this on the weekend," or "You're gonna work Christmas," or "You're gonna do this." Like, I it is such a rarity, a blessing, and I'm not
Mhm.
rich. I'm just like a middle of the road person, like, just, barely getting by like everybody else, but utterly so happy that I don't have anybody owning
Yeah.
my life.
It's worth so
That
much, isn't it? It's
that
worth so
is
much.
worth more to me than anything, and it's very hard, it's hard work being in the movie industry. I work incredibly long hours. It's very logistically, stressful. You're constantly putting up 8 balls in the air and juggling them all for as long as the show is. But at the end of that show, I can take 2 months off, I can take 3 months off, I can take 1 month off, I can go right into another show. I have the ability to control what I do in my day to day, and most people don't even understand what that feels like, and it hurts my heart that so many people have a lack of control over their day to day, not only because they have bills to pay, but because they're constantly being told where to go, what time to be there. I just could not consider myself a free person and live under that kind of, regime. I'm
No,
sorry,
no.
you know? It my who I am, my internal being does not align with that. So,
It's fantastic. Yeah. That's
I'm a rare bird out there, and I'm super grateful, and, I wish more people had the ability to choose how they spent their time. I
well,
think we were all meant to be in that world where we're choosing how we're spending our time more.
the American philosopher Thoreau said that he went from trying to sell, he used to make baskets and sell them for money. And he said, I went from trying to work out how to sell my baskets to working how I could live so that I didn't need to sell my baskets.
Yeah.
So, live simply and enjoy the freedom. And then you don't need to go chasing all of these glittering objects because you have real happiness.
Yeah. I mean, I wish people understood. It's so easy to look at somebody else and want what they want. It's our ego mind. They're not conscious of even doing it anymore. But if they only knew there's so much more on the other side. There is so much more once you get through and you understand who you are, you understand um you start monitoring your own emotions, your feelings, and starting to really discover who you are internally. There's so much more freedom on the other side of that. There's
Yeah.
so much more bliss on the other side of that.
Yeah.
You just have to do the work. It's not easy. It's not like you're going to sit down tomorrow in a 5-minute meditation and life's going to be all cheesy breezy for you. It takes a discipline, it takes time, it takes an intention there to do the work so you can get to the level where you are not being triggered or affected by the minutia of the 3D matrix, and you take yourself out of the mix and understand who you are. It's so I can't, stress that enough that there really is so much more to being here than the 9 to 5 job, the rat race that we find ourselves in, and our egoic minds really we is something that we should start paying more attention to, because I think there's a lot of not only pain, but people feel shame for feeling the way they feel. They don't wanna admit that they're jealous, or they don't want to admit that they wanna be on number 1 or want the attention. They feel insecure, they feel all these things. But honestly, we are all human beings and we are so much more alike than we will ever be different. We
Yeah.
just are.
Yeah.
And people think we're so different and this and that. We're not. If you get rid of the surface bullshit, we are very much all very much alike. We all want to be safe. We all want to be healthy. We all want to love our pets or children or husband or wife. And we all want to be happy. And part of being happy is figuring out, um, who we are inside and
Absolutely.
doing the work,
Yeah. Yeah.
digging deep, doing the work. Um, Dave, David, is it I want to say David.
David's
So,
fine.
David, so what is your best advice for people who are going to read this book? What's the greatest takeaway? What are you hoping people will discover after reading your book?
Well, I mean, there are two parts to the book. First part, one half is I give all of these examples of people who've achieved massive things in sports, pop stars who had incredible sexual gratification, um, intellectuals who achieved massive fame and success, people who are billionaires, writers who achieved massive fame and success, none of which made any of them happy.
Yeah.
Even Buzz Aldrin, who was the second man to walk on the moon, he said there was just such a feeling of, of what next. You know, he felt so empty afterwards. So the first part is to say, look, let's look at all of the supposed avenues of external success. Look at them realistically and see that they don't succeed, that they don't give you what you're hoping they'll give you. And then experiment with looking inside. And if you dabble in it and you grope around in the dark and you stumble around in the dark, eventually, if you're stubborn enough, you don't need to be a pure, holy human being uh, meditating in a Tibetan cave, a Himalayan cave. You look within, you can experience this love and bliss, which is totally transformational. Even just to have a glimpse of it shows you the right direction to go in. So it's really, I'm just saying, let's look honestly at external happiness and then experiment with internal, looking for internal happiness.
Yes, yes. I completely agree. I hope that this book reaches as many people as possible because I do feel that we're living in such a materialistic, vapid, lost. We have
Yeah,
lost who
lost.
we are. We are lost. And I think that I am rooting for humanity. I am rooting for us to start really understanding that we are heavily, heavily programmed, number 1. We are programmed from the time we are small and our schooling, we are programmed all the way up into our adults. What
Yeah,
we if you're I've said this a million times on the show, but I'll say it again. If you're not constantly having a filter on your eyeballs for what you're letting in, every single thing you're watching has some sort of agenda, and you have to ask yourself, what is this trying to get me to think, feel, say, or do? And if any of those things result in anger, fear, insecurity, distrust, turn the channel, man. Like, turn that stuff off. That is its intent. And if people don't start to understand they're getting spoon fed and programmed to feel and think a certain way, they're never going to be able to tap in and understand that the egoic mind has its own agenda, it has its own needs, and we don't always need to be giving into it. And we have the ability to become aware of our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions. And we have to start asking the questions,
yeah,
doing the work, get
yeah,
into a meditation and watch things unfold. I'm Everybody that I know isn't working in, like, there's so many people that I know that are not working in the movie industry. And I'm telling you, David, the only reason I have a job right now is because I manifested that, because I say it, I speak it. I think speaking is intention, it's energy. You put that intention out there, you embody what you want to bring into your life, and the universe will help you out. It is the universal law of attraction. It is a life hack, and you should start doing it and watch things unfold in another way in your life that is entirely new based on how you're thinking, what you're feeling, and what you're saying. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it, gang. All right, David, where can people pick up your book?
It's yeah, so it's a short book about ego and the remedy of meditation. It's from published by Mantra Books. It's on Amazon. It's on Barnes and Noble. It's on Hive. It's on Collective Ink. People can contact me. There's an email address at the end of the book, and also I've got a website called MediaLens.org. And they can write to the editor there. I'm one of the editors. So yeah,
Well, David, I want to really thank you for coming on the Fate podcast. I enjoyed this conversation. It's an important conversation about ego and the ego trap. And I want people to pick up the book, read the book, and start understanding, man, like it's not all about money and materialism. That's not going to make you happy. Happiness lies within. You just have to
yeah,
seek it and you will find it.
yeah.
Alrighty, guys. On that note, we're going to leave it there. Thank you, David Edwards, for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks for having
And
me on.
thank you, sir. We will see you next week, gang, on Fate From Atheism to Enlightenment. Journey well, everyone. Bye bye.
Bye.
And that is a wrap on this episode of Fate From Atheism to Enlightenment. I want to thank David for coming on the show today. I thought it was a great conversation. We didn't get too far down the path of meditation and spirituality, but I think that talking about the ego, making people aware of it more, that it has its own agenda. It's a constant beast that needs to be fed, whether you are running around big shot billionaire or you are an ill person that somehow is in this circle of liking the attention that you get from your tragic life, or whether you're feeling super superior to others because somehow you have the moral clarity and others don't. We all want to feel good about ourselves. And David's book really is a way to come to terms with those feelings that everyone has, whether they be jealousy, envy, um, seeing somebody happy and wanting your own happiness, seeing other people achieve and feeling this sense that you deserve achievement too. All of that is your ego mind talking to you. And when you can identify it, recognize it, you can do something about it, because our ego minds are not really always acting. They're acting in our best interest, but it sometimes leads to behavior that I feel is kind of ruining our culture and the way we interact with each other. There's this self obsession, the selfies everybody takes. There's the putting yourself on social media. There's this self promotion that's happening. Our egos love that kind of behavior for sure. And everything is okay in moderation. It's okay to promote my show, or it's okay to promote what you feel good about. I'm not trying to detract from that, but everybody knows we're living in this sort of like extreme culture where everything is on steroids these days, including hate, including um materialism, consumerism, searching for happiness. All of that seems to be ramped up. There is no moderate left, I feel. Everything is just on high or it's on nothing. There's no like, "Hey, let's stay in the middle and just kind of like have a little balance here." There's a lack of balance, I think, in general in the world today when it comes to things. So I just want to do a little show about the ego trap and how it can keep you from happiness. It can't keep you from feeling fulfilled. We always think that when we get this next thing, this job, this house, this whatever, it's going to make us happy, content, and feel good. And maybe it does for an instant, for a moment. And then we always seem to go back to feeling lack, less than, wanting more, and it's a cycle I think humanity in general is in, including myself. I struggle myself. It is only in the last few years that I've been able to start recognizing my behavior, understanding myself, and snapping myself out of it. And asking questions like, why am I feeling this way? Why is this triggering me? How should I be reacting in this situation? And there's nothing wrong with having moments of anger, um, moments of feeling jealous, moments of feeling unhappy because somebody else has achieved something and you didn't. It's normal behavior that I think everybody should embrace. I think people like to feel that they're above that. Oh, I was fine. I didn't care that so and so Sally won the homecoming queen and I didn't. Like, it's okay. Like, we're all wanting to put our best selves forward. We all want to shine. We all want attention. We all want to feel special. We all want to feel loved. It's a part of our ego. It's a part of our minds. It's a part of how we're built. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just wanted to do a show highlighting, like, hey, y'all, it's okay to feel this way, but maybe we should start thinking a little bit more about why, what it means. Oh, I'm feeling this way because of this. Let's realign and think a good thought. Oh, I'm feeling a little angry today because I watched too much television. Let's realign and sit for 10 minutes, breathe, get into my body, feel your feelings and release them, transmute them, move through them, and you will feel better, more centered, more grounded, happier. And turn off the television. There's so much programming. There's so much out there that is just there to distract you, to make you angry, to make you scared. And yes, there's a lot of fearful, terrible, weird ass shit happening in the world right now. I feel like I have woken up in some sort of dystopian nightmare and I can't seem to escape. It doesn't seem real sometimes. I'm like, "The fuck out of here. Really? That's going on?" Like, I don't know, maybe it's just my perspective, but I feel that we are in some interesting times, and I am choosing not to focus too much on it because I don't think it does me any good to worry, to stress, to be fearful, to be angry. It is only gonna bring more of that into your life, and that's exactly why you're completely and totally inundated with shit that is going to make you fearful, angry. They want you to be angry and outraged. They want to distract you from who you really are. And at the end of the day, we are love, we are bliss. And if you tap into that, your inner core, and you feel that and you breathe into that, you will start understanding that. And I hate to get all like woo woo and everything, but it is true. And David and I were talking offline, and I was like, look, there's no way you could have told me this 5 years ago. I say this on the show very often that people need to be shaken before they can awaken to who they are. Because when you're living in your ego mind and you're not aware of it and you don't even understand how much it's controlling you, you're resistant. Your egoic mind is resistant to anything that's changed or feels weird or odd or different or un unnatural. And it's only when you get dragged through a psychological trauma, a health crisis, something where you get shaken to your core and you start to snap out of it and start questioning everything and start looking at things differently and start doing some work to expand your mind, understand who we are, all of that stuff. All of it, all of it, all of it. So I hope this episode at least illuminated you a little bit to how impacted we are by our egos, and start paying attention to what you're thinking. Start paying attention to how you're feeling, and start questioning this idea. You have to be able to um think for yourself and stop looking to others to give you answers. Stop looking to others to make you feel happy, to make you feel content, to make you feel less afraid. There is nothing to be afraid of. There's nothing that you can't accomplish that you put your energy, your focus, your intention towards. Nothing. I'm working right now. 90% of the people in the movie industry are not working right now. And I'm telling you, the only reason I have a job is because I keep saying, I've been in the business 20 years. I'm always going to work. I'll always work in the business. I will always work in this business. And I think what you say, what you intend, your speaking, your spelling, it will transmit its energy and it will show up in your reality. It might not show up in 24 hours. It's not an instant gratification thing. It is something that you work on. I work on my vibration every day. I work on how I'm feeling every day. I breathe every day. I say affirmations every day. I am constantly trying to keep myself vibrating at a level where I am going to attract my highest and greatest good. And I have to tell you, lately, by the way, I am feeling so good. I haven't felt this good mentally or physically in well over a year, maybe 2 years. And lately, I have been feeling like a new and improved version of myself. I even feel like I'm aging backwards sometimes. Like, I feel like I look younger now than I did 10 years ago. And I'm telling you, it's because I am having a mental transformation happen within me, and it's affecting everything, my exterior, my interior. I feel even while working, I am less triggered by people when I have a very, intense job, and it's very overwhelming. It can be very overwhelming, and I find that I am calmer, I take things in stride, I'm happier, I don't get irritated. I'm just managing my emotions better, and emotions are energy. And when you're having all of these negative thoughts, it's affecting your health, it's affecting your reality, it's affecting your mental well being. It's unnecessary. And the sooner you start feeling things, breathing into them, calming your mind, and understanding what and who you are, the faster you are going to change your exterior. That is my tip of the day. With that, gang, we're going to go ahead and leave it there. Follow me on Instagram at F.A.T.E podcast. I'm not sure when this episode's going to air. Probably not till after I'm already off this show. But I'm going to be putting out new episodes. I have already bookings in August and September for new episodes with fascinating guests. Continue to journey with me. Please, I really want to do this as long as possible. I'm loving it. I would love your support. Tell a friend, subscribe, like, rate the show. Do all the things so I can continue to grow and expand and touch as many people out there so I can raise the consciousness of this planet. With that, gang, welcome to your fate. I'll see you next week. Bye, guys.